In this video, I'm gonna talk about Dungeons of Hinterberg. Oh god, starting that game was a bad idea. I chose it at random on the tail end of my Christmas holiday vacation, and the premise of the game is about a girl taking a vacation. At an idyllic European town, no less. I haven't visited Europe in a solid 10 years. My inner self is screaming with desire. Sure doesn't help with the melancholy of getting back to the grind. Okay. This is fine. I can get through this. The plan is to power through the story until the token "not everything is as it seems" moment, and as soon as I figure out who the antagonist is supposed to be, my video game dream will be tastefully shattered just enough to bring me back to reality on a smooth landing. Foolproof. Controls involve an attack button, a heavy attack button, a dodge button, 2 magic buttons, 3 special move buttons, and 3 potion buttons. There's a use for all the buttons in roughly equal measures because, for example, you recharge your magic by doing heavy attacks. Your special moves are essentially I win buttons or oh shit buttons, depending on your outlook on life. And they're pretty great to clear out the field or to get out of tight spots. I can't help but feel that the game was thought around the time period surrounding the War of the Tukes. In English, the movie was called The Dog Who Stopped the War. It happened in winter, it involved a lot of snow, the entire soundtrack was composed of synthwave. By the time I watched the movie, we were transitioning from the 80s to the 90s, and the angular navy and pink lines had given way to the blue and purple jazz pattern. Trying to recapture that carefree time of youth in our lives is something I'm sure many will attempt. It's a project that's not necessarily doomed to fail, but it's also one that can never be really completed to total satisfaction. There's always going to be something missing, because when the time is gone, the time is gone. I can get back to my birthplace if I want to, but even if I stand in the bedroom of my childhood, and I breathe the air and I feel like it's just as before, it's not entirely true. I've gotten older. I've gotten bigger. Now the room is claustrophobic. My head bumps against the ceiling. The bed is minuscule, or it's just plain gone. I have gray hairs, and that's if I have any hair at all. My enjoyment of the place is marred by the knowledge of the bigger world surrounding it. A world that in my childhood did not exist yet. The world stopped at the nearest town with a bank and a supermarket. Everything beyond that was meaningless. Speaking of which, I know for a fact that my childhood bedroom is not even a bedroom anymore. The new owner removed all the furniture and turned it into a room where he can play music. He had a keyboard, an electric guitar, a small amp, the good old token mess of cables. The rest of the house had been thoroughly modified and renovated to such a point that it was like gazing on the ship of Theseus. Aside from the brickwork on the outside, everything had been slowly torn down and remade over the years. It's fair to ask where I'm going with this. When I play this game, I chase after my own memories. I try to recapture something that only happens once. And now that the right conditions are no longer united, it can't happen again. I try to re-experience the awe and wonder of the things I enjoyed in the past, and which I will not get to enjoy in the same way again. I have to make peace with that. It doesn't mean that the experience is ruined. There are tons of places in the world I would love to revisit a dozen times if I could help it. It's just that the first time is special. It's got that extra sparkle of newfound discovery. It's like opening a gift on your birthday. Of course, you're going to use the item over and over, and it'll be great and fun and useful. But you can only undo the wrapping paper once. Playing this game felt like undoing the wrapping paper for 24 hours. That's how long it takes to get from start to finish, with most of the side content explored to a reasonable level. When you're done, you can start a new game plus and do it all over again if you feel like it. Might be worth doing just to get the last little bits and pieces if you're in the mood for it, or if you just want to enjoy the scenery for a little longer. The New Game Plus also raises the baseline difficulty a couple notches so that you don't necessarily breeze through the first few dungeons like it's just a formality. Now, the bread and butter is the aforementioned dungeons. If you liked playing everything between Ocarina of Time and Skyward Sword, boy have I got some great news for you! It's not as fiendish as playing Zelda, but the puzzle level is still challenging enough to bring a good satisfaction when solved. You get a sprinkling of sword fights, you get wow-inducing sceneries, and you even get a few dungeons that flip the script on you and get fancy with the mechanics. No two dungeon is the same, and ultimately, the one thing in common some of them have with each other is the color palette and the magic package being put to use. Because somehow, the developers managed to fit no less than 4 separate magic systems into the game. Each of the 4 main areas has its own set of spells to use, and they cannot be brought elsewhere. It's a great design decision because it keeps things simple. At the very most, you have 2 magic spells to use, they participate in both the fights and the puzzle solving, and it helps to tailor each area to the particular spells meant to be used with them. Everything is a vacation, and death is a slap on the wrist. You can get wrecked by the enemies, you can fall down a bottomless pit, you can do whatever you want. The worst that happens is that you get sent a few moments backwards, and you are free to try again. If you keep on top of the available equipment, you can almost bum rush your way through the majority of the fights without too much of a worry on the mind. The boss fights might require a little more finesse, but nobody is playing Dark Souls here. You can do it. I believe in you. I can't find anything bad in this game. The only bad thing is self-inflicted. It's a product of my own personal experience. The holidays are over, I'm back in the raging torrent of life, and I'm bouncing off the walls waiting for the next holiday. Visiting the cute little town of Hinterberg gave me that extra little bit of vacation, however imaginary it was, on days when my vacation were just freshly over. It's not the game's fault that it showed up at just the right moment to make me long for that escape once more. It didn't intend to make me feel that way. It's just its nature, in the same way that a puppy is cute without consciously wanting to be cute. Dungeons of Hinterberg inspires wistful nostalgia and that instinct to reach out for what's already gone. In short, this game is dreaming of last Friday on a Monday.